Hello and welcome to the top left hand corner of the tube map. We're at the end of the line of the Metropolitan line at Chesham. I've been here before and I'm here today going to get this train heading south now back into London, and it's leaving from the only platform here at Chesham because Chesham is just one of the few stations on the London Underground to only have one platform. So we're going to find out today in this video which stations only have one platform for tube trains and discuss other platform statistics at many other stations as well. Let's get on board.
And just to clarify, what I mean by this is that I'm counting the platforms that tube trains are able to call at. So if there's a station that has overground, DLR and National Rail platforms as well, then I'm not counting those. It's platforms used only by tube trains. And we can't leave Chesham without noting that it hasn't always had just this solitary platform. There's plenty of evidence here of its previous platform, where it's now been turned into a station garden, an award-winning garden over the years. And best of all is that if you pop into the waiting room here, then there's old black and white photos of the station, including one from August 1960s when electric trains first ran to Chesham, and there's a steam train on the now abandoned second platform. But as it stands today, Chesham is a tube station that operates with just one platform. Let's go and find the others.
So just changing here at Baker Street for a very specific reason, which you'll see in a second. I've left Chesham, come down the Metropolitan line, changed here. Chesham is our first of however many stations it is that has one platform. And whilst we're discussing stations that have one platform, I thought I'd also do a quick mention of stations that have the most platforms.
So out of the 272 tube stations on the network, the majority, just under 200, have two platforms. 16 stations have the odd number of 3 platforms, 42 have 4 platforms, and then there are just 2 stations that have the odd number of 5 platforms. And then it's the big hitters, where there are 10 stations on the network to have 6 tube platforms. 2, King's Cross and Waterloo, have 8 tube platforms in total, but the one that comes out on top is where I am now, Baker Street, where the Metropolitan, Agency, Circle, Bakerloo and Jubilee lines all pass through here, meaning that it has the most, with 10 platforms in total. But back to the single platform stations, and I've been on the Northern Line to the top of the tube map.
That's right, our second one platform station is one that I'm very familiar with. Again, at the end of the line, it's an end of the line station. We're at the top of the Northern Line, or the Mill Hill East branch off of High Barnet. And I have made a couple of videos, I think, about Mill Hill East before, but I'm just going to wait for this train to pull out and I'm going to see if there's any evidence of an old abandoned second platform behind this train. I'm getting mixed answers where I'm looking up things online. A general consensus appears to be, because this line it was a steam line, it wasn't electrified, it went up to Edgware, there was a second station Edgware, made a video about it, and then it was all being electrified as part of the Northern Heights plan when the Second World War happened in the 1930s, and it was only ever electrified to here, and the rest of it was never completed, and that's why Mill Hill East exists as a little stub today. And thanks internet, is telling me the short answer is yes, it briefly had a second platform but was never used for regular passenger service. And I've never really thought about that before, but I can see now quite clearly looking south from the single platform, the one platform, is that the bridge there, the road bridge, there is of course, there's the space where the second track would have been. So there definitely was a second track. I guess the second platform could have been, might have been there. Again, I read something else that said preliminary work was started on a second platform but was never completed, so it depends on which website you're reading. But as it stands today, Mill Hill East is the second of our single only tube stations with one platform.
And as I'm mentioning the abandoned railway beyond Mill Hill East, it's worth mentioning other abandoned tube stations that also used to have one platform. Arguably the most famous disused tube station, that's Aldwych, which closed in 1994, initially opened with 2 platforms, but for the majority of its operational life just had a single platform. The Epping to Ongar branch on the Central Line, which closed in 1994, had Blakehall Station that actually closed earlier in 1981, and that also just had a single platform. And do you remember, before the London Overground took over the East London line of the tube, when tube trains ran into New Cross and New Cross Gate, those 2 stations that had tube trains there just used a single platform.
So I'm at Kensington Olympia. This behind me here is platform 1, which is where District Line trains call. Now over there is a platform 2 and 3. So yes, on a technicality, this is a 3-platform station, an odd number. We'll get to that in a second. But because District Line trains underground can only use 1 platform here, by my rules, this counts as a single platform station for the tube, for the District Line. Underground trains can't use those platforms over there. Southern and Overground services use those platforms over there. So this one counts. So that is 3. We're going on to our 4th one. But as we go there, I'm just going to talk about some other odd numbers, because 1 is an odd number, of course. How about some stations with 3 and 5 platforms, because I just passed through one on the way here, which is one of my favourites.
And that station is Gloucester Road, a brilliant anomaly because you may have never have realised that on the subsurface lines, the westbound Circle Line platform is completely separate from the westbound District Line platform here. Tube stations with an odd number of platforms aren't unusual, as several end-of-the-line stations have an uneven number, but Gloucester Road is not a terminus. The only other example I can think of is Finchley Central. Again, it has through trains, not terminating trains, but it has 3 platforms, an odd number. Chalfont and Latimer has 3 platforms too, but the 3rd platform used to be for the Chesham shuttle, and as it's only long enough for a 4-car train, it's no longer used. Okay, so we're heading for our last station, and yes, you may have worked out by now that it's on the Piccadilly line. Let's just have a quick look at the data again in graph form, because it looks great, from which we can see that over 70% of the tube is served by stations with 2 platforms. And note that stations with an even number of platforms are more common than those with odd numbers, which reflects the bi-directional nature of most railway lines. And just for fun, if we do the maths, and I hope I've got this right, by doing the multiplication across all of these, then this comes to a total of 706 platforms that tube trains use across the network.
And I did do it this way around on purpose because Heathrow Terminal 4 is the 4th out of the 4 stations that I have visited today, which have 1 platform. Yeah, there's definitely there's no old abandoned platform here. Heathrow Terminal 4, oh, doors closing, trains going off, has always purpose-built been a single platform. Technically the end of the line, trains pull in here, they stand for a moment, the driver uses the facilities if they need to, and then they start again round the loop in service to go back to Cockfosters. So that is it. Those are your 4, love it, those are your 4 London Underground tube stations. So what we did, Chesham, I'm trying to remember now, and Mill Hill East and Ken Olympia, and here your last one at Heathrow Terminal 4. That is it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.